Before we begin this episode, I want to give a huge shout out to all of our patrons over on patreon.com/bitterbrownfems, where $5 gets you a video version of this episode and $10 gets you an extra episode every month. A special shout out to Christian G, Eveline, Ronnie L, Bianca, Cassandra G, Miranda E, Selena, Fernando P, and Annabelle. Yeah. Thank you all for supporting us. And yeah, consider supporting us on Patreon. The link will be in the description of this episode. All right, let's start the show. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. We're doing it live. This is Ruben coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And welcome back to another episode of Bitter Brown Femmes.
And this is your host, Cassandra, coming to you from El Paso.
And that's in El Paso, Texas, for those of
El
you who've
Paso,
never heard.
Texas. That's true. There's an El Paso, Colorado, and I hate them.
There's a Portland, Maine. And I almost accidentally flew there once.
Or no, well, maybe it's just a county. I don't know. But yes, El Paso, Texas, nonetheless.
Yeah, I almost ended up on the other side of this fucking country by accident. Um, for some reason their flight was cheaper. Um,
I bet it was.
because nobody wants to fucking go. No offense to the people of Maine, Portland, Maine, but come on, girls, what is
Mm.
happening over there? Um,
Racism.
who knows? Maybe Maine is very progressive.
Mhm.
Isn't it like next to Vermont? Vermont is like super progressive. But anyways,
Yeah, that's where Noah Khan's from. I believe it.
oh, is she progressive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all about raising awareness for mental illness.
Oh.
Yeah, I love him. I'm
Yeah,
gonna see him one day.
all the lesbians fucking love that dude. He's like Gen Z fucking hosier to some people. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Well,
Do you like
he's
hosier?
just too big now. So like I would like to see him in a room with like about 50 people tops, you know what I
Damn.
mean?
No bottoms?
Um, huh?
No bottoms?
Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. We're getting
Um,
sidetracked. Let's focus.
all right. On this episode, the recession indicator, if Jeff Bezos sending people to space, celebrities to space, for exactly like the total,
Eight,
yeah, for the
eight
total
minutes.
time span of the flight, of the rocket, of the whatever, space flight, is that what they're called? I don't know. Is 11 minutes. And so that's from like takeoff to when they came back to Earth on their little parachute. So 8 minutes, I think it's less time in actual space, Cassandra. I think there's no.
That's what I saw. But I mean, you know what's so funny? I think in February someone had tweeted like Katy Perry is set to go to space for Jeff Bezos' next Blue Origin rocket launch.
Mhm.
And I don't know why. I don't know if I thought it was satire, like, because it's so random. But someone like retweeted it and was like, her album was so bad, they're kicking her off the planet. And so like I was laughing at that, but I didn't think that this was a serious thing that was going to happen. Because like
Yeah,
why? Like I it's just rich people are so weird.
yeah. First of all, it costs a shit ton of money to do anything space related. So, yeah. Second of all, you're like a broke rich person who can only afford to send people to space for a couple minutes. That's broke behavior. I'm sorry. Like, and then like you chose like the randomest like influencers, and I don't know. I think there was like a poet that I don't know or something, and then like some C-list celebrities or people not on top of their game. Like you got Katy Perry, who like irrelevant pop star nowadays. Sure, accolades, blah blah blah. Not a Grammy though. Couldn't fucking send Gaga or somebody else who's more relevant. And then you got Gail King, not even fucking Oprah up in space. Like
It's
that's like
just
broke rich
the
people
roommate.
behavior.
Wink wink.
The roommate. Somebody tweeted a picture of Oprah nervous, like of Gail being sent into space and be like, oh, she almost lost her best muncher.
Stop. She was there. Oprah was there.
Yeah, but she's like, I ain't going to space on this broke ass flight. Uh,
Absolutely not.
And I want to like point out the fact that like, okay, yes, haha, broke rich people, but also this is only possible because all the tax cuts this man gets, right? It's not like, oh, he's doing this for like the good of science or whatever the fuck. Like, no, bitch, this was like a show of like arms, like one of those like arms race, Cold War type of shit where like you show like the might of capitalism or whatever the fuck. That's essentially funded by our taxes because we, the regular human, who's not a billionaire is paying all these fucking taxes. The billionaires are getting tax cuts, right? And so they're able to do stupid shit like send Katy Perry to fucking space so she can write the worst pop song in the world about how fuck she misses dirt or whatever the fuck. Like, ugh,
We really sent her to outer space. She should have stayed out there.
girl, she
That
hasn't.
song was so bad. That single she did, that
Every
video she did, that it was just,
the
I do not like Katy Perry. I
the
do
women's
not like
world,
her.
the one with the
Yeah.
oh God,
I thought that's what they were doing. They're sending her so she can like go spread white feminism
somebody has
somewhere
to, I
in outer
guess.
space, I guess.
Um, but yeah, that is the recession indicator. Um.
I I'm still confused about this whole thing, but moving on. Moving on. I'm just as confused as like flash mobs. Just confusion. Actually, flash mobs make a little more, they make sense to me. I don't agree with them, but they make sense. I get it. I get it.
It's like white people community.
That is them building community and solidarity with each other through flash mobs. That's true.
But space,
Like
who
if white people really like organized and like just focused on like oppression and fascism and everything else, like they would get so much accomplished. But no, these bitches just want to be dancing in the street and not just mm, okay.
and like there was people like in the 60s, I believe, who like 60s through 80s, I believe, who like purposely moved to like suburbs to try and radicalize like suburban white people. And like that can happen again if you guys really want to, suburban white people. Like I think that would be more fun, honestly, than flash mobs. Because like
They
flash
can do
mob,
a flash mob there to get the point across if they really
oh,
wanted to.
like their
They can
own
incorporate that.
like their Isambaksak, like their unity clap, but it's a flash mob.
Yeah. Could you
Yeah.
imagine like flash mobs like just like direct action? But it's
Mm.
like, all right, that's enough of that. Let's
Just
move on.
ideas, just
Just
spitballing there
ideas for you all.
for you, Caucasian. So things that are up in the world right now is the SAVE Act, that was proposed by a bunch of conservatives. Cassandra, you have the rundown in your at your disposal.
I do. So just to summarize, it's called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It's heading to the Senate. Um, and there's been, let's see, a growing debate on how the bill may affect voting for millions of married women. So I think that's like the focus because the legislation, which is known as the SAVE Act, looks like it was introduced in response to fears about voter fraud, which, they're always on that bullshit. Um, I'm reading from here. Among the most notable changes outlined in the bill is a requirement to prove U.S. citizenship before registering to vote. So acceptable documents will include a birth certificate, U.S. passport, and certain versions of the real ID that indicate citizenship. So I guess the thing is because married women, you know what I mean? Like they don't have their maiden name. Their birth certificate obviously says like their maiden name and like their new documentation doesn't is they're married, you know what I mean? Like they're saying that it's going to affect mostly married women, but as someone had mentioned, it's actually going to affect, I feel, trans people or undocumented people the most. I'm not saying it's not going to affect married women, but I think that the goal has always been when they're talking about voter fraud has been like undocumented people and of course trans people. Anything to do with, birth certificates and identity and all that shit. So
Yeah, and I think it'll affect undocumented people, not in like the obvious way of like undocumented people can't vote, right? But in the more
Yeah, they can't even vote. But yeah, sorry, not undocumented people, but immigrants that are here
that are citizens now, you're
or
saying?
residents. Can
Yeah.
residents vote, right?
No, no.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
But yeah, people that like it, the whole thing with any bill that's being passed is like it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day because they're just like doing whatever the fuck they want. You know, with this SAFE Act, it's like they can deny your birth certificate, they can deny whatever at the end of the day. Like it doesn't matter because like when we've been talking about oh, the Constitution and breaking laws and it doesn't fucking matter. Like you know what I mean? Like it just it doesn't save you from anything.
yeah. And I think for a lot of people who maybe um how do I say this politely, don't have only see from a citizen's lens how this will affect people. Their first thought is, yeah, married women. You know, we go back to like basic women's rights, right? Um, but to me, what also comes up is like, you brought up undocumented folks and this idea of like everybody needing to have official documentation all the time is like another way to kind of be like a Gestapo of sorts, right? To kind of like force us all to constantly have our paperwork at all times, right? So that they have now legal grounds to kind of just make us like, presented. And, you know, that brings a lot. I don't want to like fear monger or anything, but yeah, they can essentially do whatever the fuck they want, even if we do have that paperwork, right? Um, because Gestapo is not like that stopped them from doing fucked up shit or like even stealing people's paperwork, right? Um, I'm also thinking about how there's a continuation of the a attack on like trans people, right? A lot of trans folks, even like some very famous ones like Hunter Schafer, uh, have had their like IDs with their um names like revoked and instead of being given this like quote unquote like renewal that has their like dead name on it and it has like their previous like the gender that they were assigned at birth on the ID instead of their actual gender. And so shit like that, like you effectively create like a lower class of citizen just by like the fact that you need things to align with your birth certificate, right? And immediately that prioritizes cis people, it prioritizes men. Uh, yeah. And I'm reminded of a point that you kind of touched on briefly last episode. Cassandra, about how like, single women with no children who are like, seen as happy because they're like girl bosses, like are privileged in society because they're doing capitalism well. And I'm thinking about how this Save like act is also a part of that scheme of like making it seem like this girl boss person who never got married is also like a different type of citizen that one that is married.
Yeah, which is interesting to me because this country has always put has done I think the opposite of putting married women on a pedestal. And I mean marriage itself is comes with benefits and privileges, right? And it is like the Christian traditional family bullshit that they're always on. But of course, I think if it is meant to target like married women, it's obviously just like patriarchy, right? It's like y'all can be married, but I don't know about voting. Which takes us back. It's not anything new. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's favoring it. I would just say it's just part of like patriarchy trying to take women's rights away. But at the same time, like I said, I don't necessarily like. feel it's meant to target married women, but also I could be wrong. I could be wrong, who knows? And the reason like this was brought up was because and I'm Cassandra's listening. Her name, I'm sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong, but her name is Dr. Cassie Osei. Osei? And we follow each other online, and she had reshared, I guess, some information about the SAFE Act and how people, I guess, some conversation was happening about people's response to this was just like, well, don't get married. You know what I mean? Like, marriage is this oppressive institution, and like we should stray away from it. And, it's like you could agree with that, we all agree with that, or not, whatever. But at the end of the day, what does that do for people? What does that do for married women in this position? What does that do for people who want to get married for whatever reason? Tying it back to the conversation we had last week about kind of similar of like instead of like helping people, we're just like, well, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't make that choice. You should just stray from this, and then you know what I mean? Then you'll be safe. And it's like that doesn't really do anything for people. Which is where this conversation kind of stemmed from. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what where this bill goes if it passes. And like I said, at the end of the day, all the bills and everything that they're doing, it does not matter what's legal and what's not. It, you know, which is like hard when we're like we're having these conversations about everything that's happening, and it's like I have nothing to say because I feel like I have nothing to say about these things because I'm like, at the end of the day, they're gonna do whatever the fuck they want, right? Like, we can say it's wrong or whatever. Like, I know one thing we haven't talked about is what's his fucking name? Cory Booker,
Oh shit, I forgot about that because it was
right?
so dumb. But yes,
It was so dumb, and I saw
talk
so
about
many
what
people.
well, people who don't know what happened with Cory Booker. What is the deal there?
Wasn't I don't even know what the deal was.
So
He was
Cory
doing a
Booker is like a senator or something.
he's a what?
Senator or House representative
Oh,
who took the
he's
floor,
some politician.
um, who took the floor for 25 hours, um, recently. And people were celebrating it, because nobody has ever done like taken the floor for that long. Yeah, he's a senator from New Jersey, and he took the Senate floor to talk about why Democrats are like resisting against Trump for 25 hours straight. That beat the last time that a senator took the floor, which was like 23 hours or something to that around that time. Um, and so people were celebrating, thinking he was like filibustering, right? Filibustering being like a way to stop like a Senate action from taking place. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that he wasn't stopping anything. He was just pontificating. He was just like going on a lecture for 25 hours with no point and no call to action and no plans of actually stopping any legislation or anything presented by conservatives or the right wing. He was just doing it for show. So all that shit was for nothing. And liberals were claiming it was this big symbolic gesture, but like that shit was like 2 weeks ago and nothing else has come from them. So what the fuck that fool wear a diaper for and talk about for 25 hours for?
And I also hated how I saw so many people that were like from quote unquote leftists, or I don't even know what we're calling people now. But they were like, oh my God, why can't we acknowledge that he did something good and he's a Zionist?
Oh
Why can't,
no.
and I'm like, y'all are so, what did he do? What does that do for anything? Someone said, and this is like from, I'm not gonna put this person on blast, but this is from that. And it says that Cory Booker's a Zionist. True. Cory Booker just created a record of dissent against the Trump administration. Both of these things are true. I'm sorry, we're supposed to be celebrating that he created a record of dissent against the Trump administration, and that's all Democrats got for us. And we're supposed to be like, yes, thank you so much for doing something for us. Like, what the fuck did that even do? What does that even do? And why do we need to be content with like the minimum bare effort that Democrats always like give? Like, I, and then after that, just like continue to ask us for fucking $5. It's just it's we're like barely 4 months in, or how many months into this fucking
Three
presidency, and
months.
it's every fucking week. It's just like, what the entire fuck, right? But we're supposed to be like, hell yeah, this man who's this fucking who literally after he did this went to go sign for more funds for Israel. We're supposed to be like, hell yeah, he created a record against Trump. Y'all need to be doing a lot more than that, but we know that Democrats are not going to do that. And they're not going to do that also because people keep fucking applauding this bare minimum bullshit that they always do, and they keep getting away with it.
I saw somebody cry because of this
About
action.
what?
Like they were like so overtaken with joy.
Because
And
this man could talk for 25 hours?
yeah,
Okay. I mean, men do that all the time.
facts.
So, okay, sure.
Oh my God. Um, but yeah, I still think it's like important to like unpack what the fuck is going on, like and to understand that like, you know, we're also figuring it out and, folks can, we can unpack this, unravel this together and not feel alone in our like desperation. Also, I don't necessarily like, as always, I want to like personally always like, how do I say this? Like resist like contempt. I think that is something that can make me hopeless. So yeah, but I try to find a balance between like, all right, we're staying informed and also like completely like destroying my fucking serotonin receptors or whatever the fuck. Yeah. Um, but uh yeah, I'm reminded when talking about like, all this, a lot of things that are happening like legally, ultimately like don't matter to the administration because they're gonna do what they want. I am reminded of recently, Maryland man was deported to El Salvador. His name Kilmar Abrego Garcia, for no reason. Now that and the courts have multiple times asked and demanded Trump return this man, and he's refused. And today, he brought the Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele to the White House to talk about like, why supposedly they're not bringing this man back to the U.S. and is now stuck in what they're calling mega prisons in El Salvador, which is where essentially they just like sardine pack a bunch of people that they deem like, quote unquote a criminal, right? And so that El Salvadorian president is refusing to, let this man go free despite nothing, and they're even like without any evidence or base for their claims. They're claiming that he was a gangster, even though that's not in any way been proven or whatever the fact. And even if it was like that, still there's like processes for a reason if this is the way that they want to handle things, but they refuse to actually, to your point, Cassandra, like follow these processes because they just want to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, and then he said in, I guess, the meeting he had with him today that he said homegrowns are next. The
God.
homegrowns, you got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough. So he's literally talking about deporting more American citizens to and some like that's not crazy to people. Like,
Yeah, the next step from this, I think, is denaturalization in a way that we cannot expect it. Um, and of course, like a lot of these things, hopefully get tied up in courts long enough to be fought, but it's important to know what the fucking how the cookie's crumbling right now. Um, yeah, along with that, the US government admitted that they are monitoring quote unquote immigrant social media, um, for anti-Semitism, which again has been defined by our government as essentially like anti-Zionism. Like it's been so uh like the term anti-Semitism has been so removed from its actual meaning to now include anti-Zionism as far as the U.S. government goes. And so now undocumented folks can't even I will have to live with the fear of like expressing their support of Palestine because the U.S. government might be watching them.
Yep. Also, I think Border Patrol being able to check your phone when you're crossing back, I
Can
think.
they officially?
I don't know if it's officially, but it's like
I saw
there
it's
was
happening to people, but I thought
yeah.
it that wasn't
Yeah,
legal.
I saw that it was happening to people, but I don't know if it's like something that passed or because like it's happened. It's not anything new. I always talk about like people should pay attention to borders, border towns, not borders, but border cities, border towns, because all of this shit is not new. The militarization, like things that they're using, that they have used in Palestine and Gaza, have are here. Like I don't know if you've seen like those robot dogs.
Hmm.
They're here in El Paso. They're here at the border, and it's so dehumanizing. Amongst other things, obviously, but it's like a lot of these things are not new. They're experiments, especially in border towns, and like now we're just seeing a widespread of that.
Yeah. Um, which brings me to a point I've made in the past about like how all like science is not fucking devoid of like morals, right? Because these robot dogs were likely funded by, some research grant of some sort, and these students, these researchers probably thought, "Oh, I'm about to make a breakthrough that'll help the world," but now their discoveries are actually just being used for, at best to make deliveries, at worst to literally harm people. Um, and so all these things, like I, oof, let me not talk about him. Just dating a scientist recently really put it in my mind, like how fucking oblivious they are, like the science community often is to like the morality and the practical use of their research. Because their own hopes and dreams for helping humanity is often like not what actually gets them the money to do the research. It's government and corporate interest in how these breakthroughs can be used for either capital gains or for colonialism or to strengthen the police and surveillance state.
Hmm. And if
Ah,
if they're doing that willingly, you're going to hell. Hope you know if you're using your degree for that, I hope you know that you're going to hell.
girl,
Period.
real. If there's a hell, all of a sudden now she believes in hell.
Period. I mean, yeah, I know. I always think of that tweet that's like, if karma's so real, why are white people still having a good time?
Oh my God.
Because
Yeah, I think. Oof, let me not get into that part of religion. But yeah, at some point, there is no logic. There's no, all right, y'all can fight me. It's fine. With things like that, like some people are never gonna get their just desserts. Like they're never gonna get their quote unquote karma. So
no, these bitches live till they're like 99 years old.
yeah,
Like war criminals, like they
uh,
live their life to the fullest.
and like there is no karmic or like religion that can explain that. Other like there's some like religions that believe in like reincarnation and that we will be everybody at some point of our lives and everything at some point of our existence before, you know, reaching, you know, nirvana or whatever and, transcending this earthly realm. And in that situation, I assume evil makes sense because we will one day be that evil human. But in like, I don't know, I'm thinking about like the Christianities of the world. Uh, there's no explaining these monsters away. Like they are there. I don't know. It's hard for me, and I guess I don't need everything to explain everything in the world to me, but it's hard for me to have faith when things like this are unexplainable, other than like evil exists.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for swinging in the direction of the theists. You know, I think a part of this podcast for me is also confronting my, I don't know, my desire to maybe have faith, but constantly banging my head on like the limitations of that. Yeah. And is there anything we're missing today?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. So do you want to talk about what made you less bitter, or should I?
Yeah, actually, what made me less bitter this last week is the response that we got to our last episode. We got a lot of feedback. People reached out to me directly and were like, "This episode made me cry," or made me feel seen, or just like it was like a conversation starter. And so like I really appreciate everyone that obviously listened to it or shared it and reached out or gave feedback. Yeah, because talking about motherhood, even though it wasn't necessarily like personally, like personal about me, it's still like very vulnerable to talk about, especially because people online, like I said, every time I mention any of these things, it's like just so much backlash. Or, sometimes people are not nice about it. And so it's a lot. But that really did make me feel also not alone. And so like I hope the moms that listen to it felt that way as well. And yeah, that made me less bitter.
Mm, what made me less bitter? Um, you know, seeing Lady Gaga like through the
Where did you
YouTube
see Lady Gaga?
on YouTube.com
Oh, bitch.
for the Coachella performance that she did. It's just like wow. I love art.
Okay.
I love music. I love being gay.
Mm.
Like I love just being yeah. You know,
Straight
cis
people are so weird.
and like cis, I just think about like cis maleness, like it's so defined by like the lack, like the things you can't do because you would be less of a man,
Mhm.
right? And I'm just like, it's so fun to not exist there, to just like queen out. And the whole time I was like, my friends in LA were texting back and forth about how, you know, awesome everything was. And I was just like, this is fantastic. I just love being queer. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Love that. Love that. I didn't catch it. I didn't catch any of those performances, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
I heard I heard everyone really liked her performance, so
Yeah. A friend of a friend has a file that may or may not have a certain performance. Yeah, that people can watch for free. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
But yeah, that is it from us. Thank y'all for tuning in. And we'll catch you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.